I spent 1 week in an almost fully sustainable farm in Málaga. Hello. The farm was almost self-sustainable. You have, for example, the thing I found it was really funny, that the car didn't use like a car engine, but it uses a washing machine engine.
Hello.
Yes! Then everything was with solar panels or with like a little tubes that also catch the heat. Most of the food they would eat was caught from the garden. They planted themselves. The toilet was all a compostable toilet. And where else? They were also like building the house. The houses were all built by them and by the volunteers and by everyone that went there. Like, it was amazing. It was completely amazing. Sergio was the owner of the farm. He bought it when it was just greens and trees, and he built everything by himself, and also the volunteers that went, like me. He was, of course, he was an extremist. He lived this kind of life, but he really believed in this. He was a really knowledgeable person, and he loved sharing. Like in the middle of the day, he would just like, okay, guys, sit down. I'm gonna tell you a story. So he would tell us about philosophy, about biology, about nature, and about the end of the world. So we had so many endless talks about the end of the world. We also watched a documentary that's called Before the Flood with Leonardo DiCaprio that talks about the world ending in 2055. Like, I'm not going to say my opinion, but it's interesting to see and to see different points of view. So for those who don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the biggest environmentalists of our time. He had an appointment with UN as a messenger of peace in order to see how was the environment and the climate change around the world. So for that, it came this documentary. So I just wanted to say some key takeaways that I got from this, and I'm going to read them. So first is that the climate change is real and it's happening today. The temperatures are increasing, as for example, you have the Baffin Islands above the Arctic, in which the ice is melting, and they went there and they saw it. So if everything continues as it is now, by 2040 there will be no ice, and you can actually just take a boat and sail through the North Pole. Then we are moving towards an average warming of 4 degrees Celsius this century, which is more than you could ever expect. This is not livable, and there is proof about it. Then the world, as we know, as many environmentalists, also activists have talked about, the world is running on fossil fuels, and the biggest polluter is the US, only surpassed now by China, because everyone outsources their products to China because they have really low production costs, but they are the biggest polluters. The thing is, we consume too much and too unconsciously. 10 to 12% of the emissions are done by meat consumption. In the US, 47% of the free land is used for meat production. 47, which is almost half of the production. And out of that, 70% is just for the grain, to feed the beef. One of the biggest reasons for forest deforestation is beef consumption, and it's really inefficient production. Nobody's telling you to go vegan, but just eating less beef and chicken would actually help. And also 196 nations signed the Paris Agreement in order to reduce carbon emissions and to aim for a cleaner environment. The thing is, no carbon taxes were emitted. So it's all based on trust that everyone will follow through. Also had an interview with the Pope, which spoke out to people to try to help and become more conscious. And there are some solutions out there, as for example, the SpaceX by Elon Musk, the Gigafactory. He says that if you build 100 gigafactories, that would actually be able to run the whole world into solar panel. Thing is, it's very expensive. So, yeah. And yeah, basically, like, everyone just needs to raise their consciousness and be able to see how they consume. The thing is, they are aiming to a 1.5, but below 2. That's the goal. And this will not happen if everyone just does a little. Everyone needs to be conscious that this is a real issue and to be able to help and to raise awareness because our planet depends on this. So after that, we just like showered in the river, which they had like a natural river that just went all the way through the city and to the house. Really, it was the only shower that I had for a week was on that river because like okay you don't smell and you just have the water which is super pure because it comes from the river, so you don't really need it. We had a shower if we needed, but we don't really need it. And there was like 3 other volunteers with me there. It was like a guy which studied philosophy and he really had a passion for that, so he just ended up staying, and 2 other girls, and we'd all cook together and eat. Sometimes Sergio would eat with us.
¿Quieres poner la mano? Venga.
Sí,
Más,
no
más.
es más que 100,
Más.
100
Ya
grados.
está.
No hay más que 100 grados, ¿sí?
No sé, pero mucho más, ¿no?
We also became really close, so we did some trips as well, so we just traveled a little bit around Spain. We had these conversations about life, about the end of the world again, about any topic that you can think of.
¿Cuál es la mejor cosa de la vida?
Comer, el aire, el agua, el suelo, la compañía,
Y el cielo.
el cielo. Okay, el cielo.
We all spoke Spanish, so you got to learn like a lot. And also we shared like our knowledge, our interests. So for example, I learned Morse codes, I learned some chess, I learned just about so many things, and it just makes you think about stuff in general. In the afternoon, first we had to cook and just rest a bit because waking up at 6 after this quarantine of not having a strict schedule, it's really hard. Also because he was super hot, so he cannot really live with this. And then we just like have conversations, get to know each other better, like know things about each other's lives.
Your perfect imperfections. Giving your all to me. I give my all to you.
I didn't get to meet Sergio's wife, Maite, or their daughter, but Sergio was just an amazing person. Like he lives in this kind of way. He was not just a farmer, but this was his life because he gave up the system and the ordinary life to be able to live in this self-sustainable way, which is of course a very extremist way. He also belonged to the Greenpeace, and he lived on this. And I was like thinking a lot. Okay, it was good. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've had because I just learned so much about other cultures, about other ways of thinking, and you just think like, who are we to say if it's right or if it's wrong, if this is success, if it's not, if it's better to be working like in a super multinational company than to be working on a farm? And this to say that I'm gonna be working as a farmer. No, actually he's more than a farmer because this is actually his life, not just his job. This is how he chose to live. And he's so knowledgeable, he just knows so many things that it's amazing. Like, you just want to hear everything he has to say, you want to learn everything from him. So we are the ones who define success, but are you going to tell him you should not be living this way, you should be working in a company, you should be outside in the world and living in the city? No, because you see him and he's happy, and he was the one who chose and drew his own life and everything about his life actually. And so there's no right or wrong in this. And when I look at this experience, it doesn't mean that I'm going to become a farmer. I don't know, like maybe not. I don't really know, but it's not to say that it's good or it's bad. I really say this. And there's 2 very important things that I learned from Sergio, which is first the fact that he says that we have to just be our best versions, to be the best of ourselves in everything that we do. No matter if you are planting potatoes, no matter if you are studying, no matter if you are working, it's for you. Because we were like planting potatoes, and of course that's not the most enjoyable thing in the world, that's not the most enjoyable thing ever, and he knew that. He told us like, maybe you don't like planting potatoes, but do it the best you can, because who are you tricking? I'm not here to watch you, I'm giving you the trust to do anything that you want. But if you are doing it, do it for yourself, because you are not tricking me. I'm going to see if you plant the potatoes well or not. Yes, I will, but first you are tricking yourselves, because before tricking anyone else, we are tricking ourselves. And this is like a question of value, and that's so important. And yeah, this doesn't have to be your life, but it's really important to take this point that we have to be able to not just know there are other types of living, of life, of beliefs, but experience it ourselves and see with our own eyes. And just, I don't know, it just makes us more complete, I guess. And muchas gracias, Sergio, por todo, en serio. Y, yeah, and go work in a firm.